Morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
You can. I can. I hope that you all can hear me.
Ooh, that gator's doing wonders for you because mine I'm having a little trouble because
Well,
maybe it's a youth size.
and I am also in a youth size, which is why it's doing wonders for me.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Katherine.
Dreamcatchers.
Yes, welcome back to the Dreamcatchers. We decided that today, because we were going to be talking about masks with our lovely guest, that we are going to put them on to show mine and Marissa's are examples of masks that this lovely guest made for our booster club, our town. And I have the gator too, but my son is wearing it right now at school because he is there today. So welcome, Katherine. How are you this morning?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
We're going to have you introduce yourself to our audience in just a minute, but just for the beginning, which I'm hoping Maris, our coordinator that does all our social media, captured this amazing image. Maris, you can text me and tell me that it's okay to take this off. So, Maris is going to say it's good. We got a good image. Okay. So I'm going to take mine off. We're going to have our lovely guest introduce herself to us this morning. And we're so excited to have her here today because this episode is part of our What's the Matter series. We think that, having a conversation about the matter of wearing masks is obviously extremely relevant right now, and would love to hear from you, Katherine, a little bit who you are. And then we'll talk about kind of how you pivoted into making these beautiful masks that we were just wearing.
Oh, great. Well, who I am, that's a loaded question.
Yes.
My name is Katherine McDonald, and I live in Charleston, South Carolina. And I got hooked up with these lovely ladies from one of their friends who is the cousin of one of my best friends here. So it was one of those small world universe kind of connections.
My favorite kind.
It is the best kind in the world. So I am a mother of two boys, and I've been running my own businesses now for almost 20 years. So I guess I'm kind of a serial entrepreneur. And so just Southern girl that is trying to make it in this world these days.
So, right, we're the same except not Southern. So tell us quickly, Katherine, if you don't mind, for our audience, that your other brands and kind of a little bit about your three brands that you run or have run over the last couple of years.
Well, my original brand is called Lula Kate, and I started that in 2003, almost 20 years ago, which is crazy. And originally it was skirts and dresses and belts and makeup bags and whatnot, out of fun prints, bright and colorful, coastal. And one thing led to another. And as my life was changing, a number of my friends were starting to get married. And so they were asking me to do bridesmaids dresses. And so then I started doing bridesmaids dresses under Lula Kate. And then people were asking me to do wedding dresses. And so then I started doing wedding dresses and spun off a different company called Kate McDonald. And that is all bridal gowns now. And then when the pandemic started, I had a good friend who encouraged me to do masks. And at first I kind of chuckled and laughed and was like, I design wedding dresses. I'm not going to design face masks. But then one thing led to another, and I started doing face masks and really focused and targeted schools and more of a corporate or custom logoed kind of face mask, and not just your average, fashion mask kind of thing. So yeah, so now 3 companies, 2 kids, 2 dogs. A little crazy of a life.
First of all, I need to say several things because it's so hard for me to be quiet while I'm listening to all that. So one thing is, before I even comment, we need to put our mask back on because we missed that picture. So I'm going to do that really quickly.
Okay, we're going to put it back on. This is how we started. We wanted Maris to get a good photo of us talking with the masks on, which obviously you can see that mine and Marissa's are
kid
two
sizes,
of Katherine's creations. I don't think Katherine's wearing her own creation, is she? Are you?
No, yes, this is one of mine. It's actually a good friend of mine designed this print. So I have a number of prints.
Oh, that's fun.
That are not related.
A personalized tribute.
Okay, so we're doing it again for social media. Yay! Whoop whoop. Hopefully she's seeing it now.
I have it in case we might be maybe we are delayed and she can't hear us. So, okay, now we can take it down. Now, so what I wanted to say most importantly, before we even unpack your history and talk about what's the matter, I want to say, as somebody that has run a fashion staffing firm and worked in fashion and beauty for my career prior to working in fashion staffing, I think it's incredibly empowering and fascinating to have a woman here who sits and lives and raised her family in Charleston, South Carolina, which, by the way, is on my list, and I'd like to get there soon. Am I allowed? I don't know. Side
Come
note,
visit. You're allowed. We're in South Carolina. Everything is allowed here.
okay. I don't know if I'm allowed back.
That might be the problem.
That's the problem. No big deal.
We'll have to live there forever.
So when I think about how the fashion world, whether we like to admit it or not, sure there's LA, sure there's Chicago, sure there's Atlanta, sure there's Dallas, the fashion world is New York City focused in America. So for you to have a successful, not only one brand, but two brands with how many, in a non-pandemic time, which we'll talk about in a minute, how many people work with you?
It's changed over the years. Like it's so at a high time, it was I had a team of 9, I think. And then we have about 4 or 5 right now.
So, but you're a small, lean business with a huge social
small,
media following. You're doing your product development and your design probably in-house because you're an atelier. And you have that ability to make impact in a fashion world without having connection to Manhattan, which I think is extremely important to call out pre-pandemic, but exceptionally important to call out post, or we're not post, but during and or whatever this is. So I think it's awesome. And I think for our listeners that have wanted to have their career in fashion and always felt intimidated by that New York City address, which, by the way, is a 7-part miniseries podcast waiting to happen. You know, you speak volumes to someone out there that's done it, right? And originally, not to age ourselves, but when I first saw your name and I did your research, I realized that you started when I would have been looking for bridesmaids, dresses, etc. So I recognized the names because you're in business. How many years did you say?
2003
17. Yeah, this past summer, 17.
Right. So, and I'm married.
So it was like a little bit before your
well, I'm married 14 years, which means I would have been looking at 15 years ago.
Right.
At cool and very me, anyone that knows me, up and coming, not the main places. I didn't want to buy something that everyone else had seen because that's always been my way. So I definitely knew or recognized who you were. Plus, I'd gone to school in the South. So I probably was looking in places that were completely off
Southern path.
off the New York City path.
So just to give our audience a background as to how we found Katherine, and then we can dig into Katherine's story. We live in Fairhaven, New Jersey, for those that don't know, which is a small town in Monmouth County, about an hour south of New York City. And our booster club posted a image a few months ago on their social media and sent out an email asking us to buy these Fairhaven masks for back to school. And we obviously all, as parents here, were starting to think about having to go back to school and hoping that we'd go back to school. And, you know, as Marissa said before we came on camera, you know, really having difficulty swallowing the fact that our kid was going to have to go back to school in a mask. And maybe that was an anxiety trigger for us. And I was in denial at the beginning when friends of mine were buying masks. I was like, I'm not buying those for my kid until I know they have to wear one. Right. And look at where we are now. So I see this image and I'm like, these are cool. Like, actually, like, no offense to the booster club, all their stuff's cool, but I'm like, this is like cute. Like, I'm going to buy one for Sam and one for Elliot, my 2 boys. I got a gaiter for Sam and a mask for Elliot. And this is obviously an example. We both were wearing them earlier. And I saw it. I'm like, that's really cute. And we ordered them. And then when they posted that they were in stock, they like came in and we were like going to go pick them up. They tagged the brand. So typical me, I'm like trolling at 6:48 a.m. or whatever I'm doing. And I'm like looking and I'm like, what's James and Hudson? I'm like, this is cute. Because typically our booster club, which I love about them. And also I'm on the PTA.
What if sourced it locally?
Yeah, like local, like a small brand, maybe based in Red Bank. That's
or like a screen printer, which I mean, there's no harm in that either.
I was like, what's this? And I find myself rabbit holing on Katherine's multiple pages at like, now it's 6:51 a.m. I'm like, who is this woman? I'm like, I need to interview her. So I reached out to the
funnier, Katherine, is without talking about it, I had already done that. And when I ordered the gaiters, and it went into like the gray space of like the tab that I should go back to or tell Jamie about, and I forgot. But so luckily she was stalking you.
So here we are. I found you, and would love to hear from you.
Find, I guess.
I love it. So tell us a little bit. Our favorite first question is to ask, what you wanted to be when you grew up, because I'm guessing it's not making masks during a pandemic. So I'd love to hear. But typically, as we always say, something about what you wanted to do likely correlates in some way to what you do now. So I'd love to hear from you what it is that you wanted to be when you were your first dream job.
Well, so when I was 6 years old, and I remember this, my mother does not, but I remember this. When I was 6 years old, I was watching Cinderella. And when the mice were making the dress and whatnot, I turned to my mom and I said, that's what I want to be when I grow up. And my mom said to me, oh, that's nice. And I remember it.
You want to be a fairy godmother?
Well, yeah, I would love to be a fairy godmother or have a fairy.
The mice. She wanted to be the mouse.
I wanted to be a mouse.
I know.
But I always knew from a very young age that I wanted to design clothes. And I sketched. My favorite place was to go to the fabric store with my mom or my grandmother. I have very fond memories of my grandmother teaching me how to sew and making different dresses and making dresses for dances and deb events and, whatnot. So it was not, I wanted to go to, I always had this in my head that I wanted to be a fashion designer. And, it was one of those things where I had a very traditional father and he wanted me to be in business, which is funny. Now I've run my own business. And so I knew from an early age that that's what I wanted to do. It took me a little while to get there, but I got there.
So I usually ask, especially since you live where you live, are you from South Carolina originally?
So I am from Charlotte originally, Charlotte, North Carolina, which is a different state. Everybody, sometimes it gets confused a little bit, but I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina. And, I have my roundabout, we've talked about this offline. I have my roundabout universe ways on how I got to Charleston. I was actually supposed to move to New York a couple of different times and it didn't happen, which, was meant to be. So I ended up in Charleston in 2002, I believe. Yeah, 2002 is when I moved to Charleston.
So now two questions that I think are interesting. One, what was your very first job? For a girl who only wanted to sketch, what was your very first job?
So besides babysitting, because as soon as I was able enough to take care of another human, I was babysitting to make money. I always wanted to make money. I worked at the Gap. So the Gap was my first job, and
we just had this last week with Lee, with our other guest. It was an organized.
I swear, we have all these guests. We have Gap expats left.
Yeah, like that was
your first job with the Gap.
Such a good first job. You learn how to fold. You learn how to use a register.
Yes, you learn. And you know what? I really believe I've worked at the Gap, and then I also I was a snack bar girl at one of the country clubs in Charlotte, and pretty much simultaneously at the same time, the same summer. And I really believe that every person in their life needs to work in retail at least once, and needs to work in a restaurant at least once. And it will give you a perspective on how to treat people and how you want to be treated that will never leave.
We've said, honestly, if we have listeners that listen to our podcast all the time, there'd be a crowd out there other than Jamie and myself that says, oh my God, that's what they say all the time. So, I think if we were to create a new college curriculum in business, it would be like to intern at working in retail, to intern working in hospitality, and frankly, to take several hours in a classroom, because it's those three things that make up our society. And while the rest of us are behind these screens and or desks, if you have skill sets from those positions, you're that much more equipped to communicate and think and be kind to others. And also know who you don't want to be.
Exactly.
And people take it off their resume and we're like, no, like keep that on because
No,
that's a
I think
talking.
I always look, it's interesting when we're hiring people, we look for people that have been, we look for team sports in high
Yep.
school. I think that's a big one too, is
Because that's loyalty, dedication, and time management, and the ability to show up.
100%.
Yep.
And retail experience and restaurant experience. Like, I think that
Love
those,
it.
like what you said, it's just super important to have those in life. I mean, you might think those aren't the most glamorous jobs, but you also don't know who you're going to meet when you're working. And it's, we all know that life is about
who your connections and who you land into in your web, so to speak. And then my other major question for a person that is from, and I don't have your LinkedIn profile in front of me, so I'm not cheating.
That's really good because I haven't updated it in a long time.
Okay, so I won't say it again. So where did you go to college?
So I went to the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. So
okay. It's not a bad school, everyone.
I've heard of it.
It's what's interesting is going back. I'm a very stubborn person. Anybody that knows me knows I'm stubborn. And my dad told me that if I get into Carolina, that's where I'm going to school. Well, I wanted to go to a smaller school.
You wanted to go to like Savannah?
I actually wanted to go to Swanee, which is a small school in Tennessee. After he told me there was no way I was going to art school. Like, he was like, I'm not paying for art school. And which is, I love my dad to death, and he knows, your parents know. Yeah. So anyways, I didn't necessarily want to go to Chapel Hill, but I'm very glad that I did. And I'm very happy of the people that I met and the doors that it opened, after.
So did they have a fashion program at all there?
No, they don't have, they might now, but when I was an English and psychology double major.
So
and
that's the argument you won with your dad, is what you're saying.
Yes.
She's like, I'm going to go to Chapel Hill, but I'm going to major in English.
Exactly. I'm like,
I'm not, sorry. Yeah.
That was another thing. My dad was like, he wanted me to major in business, and I was like, no, I'm going to do psychology. And he was like, please take business classes. And you should always listen to your parents, because I would have done well taking a business class. I've never had a business class in my life, so kind of just self-taught. But my senior year, I dropped my English major and took art classes, which is to kind of get a little fix of some studio art and painting and whatnot.
Okay, so you did a little bit of that, and so then what was your first kind of industry job then after that?
So so what I did after college, I went to design school in Atlanta, and
so I was going to say, did you end up going to Savannah, or did you go to Atlanta? Like, how did you do it? Because you can't make a wedding dress unless someone teaches you how to do that.
Well, I was definitely a lot self-taught, but I went to Atlanta, and I paid for school myself, which was, a shock, because I was very fortunate that my parents paid for college for me. But after college, my dad, I was cut off the day I graduated, which was the best thing that he could have done for me. And I went to Atlanta and went to art school for, I think just a semester, and I loved it. Never skipped a class, which was the first time in my life, my college career, that I actually went to all my classes and actually studied and did really well. But I ended up leaving art school because it was quite a shock to be paying for school and, my living expenses and whatnot on my own. And I went back to Charlotte, and my first job was at a merchandising company.
Oh.
And yeah, which was interesting. It was a small company. I was, I think, the 5th employee when they hired.
Based in Charlotte?
It was based in Charlotte.
So is it regional merchandising for the Southeast?
It was national, and our clients were like Target, CVS, Rite Aid, Kroger, Fred Meyer. And what it was I'm really
so retail merchandising.
It was retail.
So you helped educate, like if I wanted to get product on the shelf. Exactly. That's actually Jamie's father-in-law does something like that.
Oh yeah. So and to date myself, it was for prepaid phone cards. So way back when you could buy prepaid phone cards, that's what it was for. And I managed all these projects and had all these people across the country, and it was a great job. It was not necessarily the subject matter wasn't anything I was necessarily interested in, but I met a lot of nice people and met a lot of people across the country, which was.
And you learned about retail distribution and product. It is incredible the amount of stuff you learn in your first few jobs.
Yes.
It's as if you're doing college all over again. You just don't even recognize it.
No, and you're like a sponge. Like you
Yes.
just soak up all this information. And yeah, I mean, I wrote a note to my boss from that job, the owner of the company, about a year and a half ago. And I told him, I was like, a lot of what I know now is because of that job. And it,
How fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
And for you to
have what you.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's so interesting that, I often talk about how like, there's so many things you learn at those first jobs you don't realize are like fundamental skill sets that you will literally have forever. So
you mean like not interrupting people and just letting the other people speak? It's like a fundamental lesson.
That's because you guys are sisters. You can do whatever you want.
I'm sorry,
that's
James.
a dig at something else.
Yeah. I'm sorry. That was a dig at being sisters. And no, I don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about?
I do want to say though that you didn't go to business school, but we like to point out that sometimes those first few jobs are all the school you need, which is hard for a young person to understand.
I think also, I wish I'd gone to business school. I mean, don't get me wrong. And I wish I'd gone to design school. I wish I had a 4-year design degree. It would have helped me, but I'm also the type of person that I think I was naive and I wanted to figure it out. And so I just did it and figured it out. And I think sometimes I did not know what getting myself into. And sometimes I think what I do, I didn't know how hard it was going to be to have a company that was not based in New York City. I just did it. Like for us,
how often did you have to come up to New York?
So I used to be in New York, at least 4 or 5 times a year. So I've been to New York more than any other place in the world, which I love New York. So it's, it's funny. It's a great place. And I've almost moved there twice, which I'm not sure how well I would have done actually living there, but I do like to visit.
You feel like the type of person that would stay in relatively the same place each time? Because I feel like you would know the people and like the people and like the fact that you had the relationship there. Am I correct?
I'm a creature of habit. Yes. Yeah.
So is the place, the hotel that you would stay in regularly still there? I mean, I'm sure there were plenty of times you stayed with friends.
No, I used to, early on, I had a lot of friends that lived in New York. So yes, I would stay with friends. And then later on, I have a coworker who is like my right hand. And usually she's the one that makes all of our travel arrangements. And it's usually either trying to get the best deal off of Priceline or whatnot. But we usually try to stay in the same areas over and over again, and we definitely have the same restaurants we like to go to, and her not as much as me, because I'm always like, let's go back to Frank, or let's do this or whatnot, and she's like, no, let's try something else. And
Frank had a good dinner.
Yeah, I like
that was a yummy meal.
Yeah, I like to go back to the
yummy meal. So walk us through a little bit then, how you ended up going from bridal design. Obviously, we are in a moment so bad for so many groups of people right now. Obviously, you name it, and there's somebody that's struggling, right, in this particular pandemic. I feel for people that have a senior in college. I feel for the seniors in high school. I feel for the kindergartner. I feel for the single parent. I mean, literally every day I find myself, because I consider myself to be an empath, thinking about other people's issues right now and how hard it is for everyone. But I do think that, obviously you are in a position where no one's going to have a wedding in a particular spot at that particular time. So now they are, thankfully. But there was a moment there where everyone's canceling their weddings or postponing their weddings. And, how do you go from, you were saying I'm not going to make masks, I'm a bridal designer. Mm-hmm. So what happened? What was your aha moment? How did you get here?
I think that it was a little bit of survival. I have a very loyal team of women that for years, and for 10 years. So we're talking not just a few years, a lot of years. And it was a little scary. Sales were because our factory shut down too. That was another thing that was kind of crazy, is that our factories in New York and LA shut down because of COVID, because of cases of COVID or whatnot. So really, when this all started, one of the things we wanted to do was give back. And I think, at the beginning of COVID, there was such a shortage of PPE. And I knew that I had local seamstresses here in Charleston. I was like, I know that I can make a mask like this. We can do this like this. And we had extra fabric, and we had people that we knew could actually make them. And then I had lots of friends in the healthcare industry that, needed these things. So that's really where it kind of started. And we were also, I do look at it as a blessing. I really try not to focus on things I cannot control, and I try to focus on things I can control. And so it was a nice deterrent and distraction to be able to be working on masks and donating masks and giving them to people that need them and whatnot, and just to take our minds off of what the chaos that was going on. I think I'm trying to remember. I believe I got approached by somebody that asked me, can you do custom printed things? And I knew of a company in another South Carolina company that could sublimation print. So kind of one thing led to another, and it was just survival, just trying to bring in some sort of sales to offset the ones that weren't coming in from the traditional channels that we're used to. And I just wanted to make sure that my girls had something, to do, and that they were getting paid, and that we weren't gonna go under. Like I was like, we've just got to figure out a way to make this work. So we kind of,
so tell us this. I love that. And so tell us, obviously we've seen so many companies like do that in some capacity. So walk us through quickly how you went from, so you didn't make the masks under the brands that you were already kind of running. You decided to make a separate entity named after your boys. Tell us a little bit about that.
I think that I just wanted to separate it. I don't know what it is. I kind of like to have, I like chaos. And
you like to just manage 17 Instagram handles versus
I mean,
one.
why not start another company? I mean, I don't know. Right. I do think that I'm definitely the vision and the idea person. So I'm always like, let's do this, let's do that. But I did want to. And
then your girls are like, but wait, we can't. No,
I know. I mean, really, sometimes you have to reel me in. Like sometimes my ideas get a little crazy. But I think when I knew that I wanted to focus towards schools and whatnot, I wanted to separate it from the bridal gowns and from the bridesmaids. And I just wanted to do something. I knew my boys would think I was super cool if I named a company after them. So I got some street cred with them. And I just wanted to keep it separate, because I knew that also it wasn't going to be something that, I do think masks are going to be around for a while. But are they going to be around forever? No, I don't think so. So I just wanted to keep it separate.
We talked about this a little bit before we started, but masks have now become fashion, right? We think about them. We went from matching them to our outfits, right? And it just kind of quickly happened overnight. Now we have the mask change to lose them.
Because fashion is an art. Fashion is an art, a therapy. And for what it's worth, our industry is hurting terribly and has been for a very long time. But it is a way to express oneself, and it is a function of healing. So when I think back, I said that offline with the trigger. Masks in general was like, when I saw a mask, it was the equivalent of the anxiety wall. I hit it when I saw it. And I remember I ordered an expensive one at 2 a.m. And I was like, what am I doing? But it was tie-dyed and matched a legging capsule that I was into from one of the athleisure brands that I like. And my best friend was like, oh my God, I can't, I bought the same one, but I can't talk about it. So anyway, sure enough, that's still one of my favorite masks. But the point is now, yes, yesterday, my daughter, I don't know if this is not a good thing or a bad thing. This is not an emotional thing. The sentence is, if there's anything amazingly beautiful about humanity, is the ability that we can heal, and that time does soften everything. And also it speaks volumes to, I mean, I've seen the Holderness family has done an entire thing about how she has like literally every single mask, like every day she gets another Etsy order from a mask. Anyway, I digress. But Katherine, first of all, I want to be best friends with you. Can we start that now?
100%.
Secondly, I think there's also something to say about the James and Hudson brand that I think is important. Having gone to school in the South and having and also Jamie going to a Big Ten school, there is a huge business. I'm just saying, there's a huge business in customized school merch, right? Probably way more now than there ever was.
Wear is the right term.
Yes, and James and Hudson will end up being an arm for you that won't just be masks, because if people know you as somebody in your customer service, and obviously your girls who, or your women, I should call them women, right? Who've been with you for 10 years, if they're the ones handling that account, they may want to come to you for things that are come when we're all well and healthy again.
I will say
that's not a bad thing.
No,
I do want to just quickly shout out the fabric. So I wanted you to tell us a little bit about this and how you decided what you were doing. There's a couple things on these that I wanted to point out. One, it has the bendable, adjustable nose thing, which my son wears glasses. So this has been something very challenging for him with the fog. And he finds that this actually really helps him with the fog because it gets closer to his nose. The gaiters, his actual preference, I'm not just saying this to like butter you up. Today we were leaving and I'm like, now at this point he has like 17 masks in his bag and he's like, one's in the car. And I'm like, take a mask, he prefers the gaiter because it's breathable for the 4 hours they're sitting there. It has the double layered fabric inside where there's like a flap inside the gaiter. Marissa, I don't know if you can show it, that kind of like protects your mouth.
And
I don't want anyone to see my lipstick.
Marissa has lipstick all over hers. Can you tell us a little bit about how you decided how to make these? Like what you decide, how you went.
This is the flap that is supposed to be on the inside and on the cover of the child's
It's like
nose.
another layer there.
So the flap is you have 3 layers of fabric protecting like over the nose and the mouth, and then you can also it's designed if you want to put a filter in, you can put a filter in there to add even more protection. Same with the mask. They have 3 layers and then a pocket to put a filter in if you want to put a filter in.
I didn't even see that before. So here's the filter part in the gaiter.
You can slide a filter in. I prefer the gaiters because I think that it's easier when I'm out walking around just to pull it down, pull it up. Yeah, it depends. Some school systems our school system, you're not allowed to wear gaiters. Some school systems you can wear gaiters. So, but the fabric is it's a UPF 50 antimicrobial sun shield fabric. And originally it is made for people who fish. And it wasn't necessarily that I sought out this fabric. I feel like the fabric found me kind of thing. It was a company that I knew that could do the printing and the sublimation printing, and that's what they were using. And it was kind of one of those things to where it worked out great because the fabric is extremely soft. And I feel like that's the first thing anybody says about the mask to me is they're like, oh my gosh, this is so soft. And it is, it's very soft. It's very breathable. And it's that way because it's actually made for fly fishing or, offshore fishing or, anybody that's out in the sun a lot. So I think just that was one of those universe things that being on the coast and knowing this company, it wasn't anything that I necessarily would have sought out. It just happened. So, but the fabric's great. I think the fabric's, I'm partial to the fabric, obviously, because it's what I use, but I do think that it's a higher quality than just a normal cotton fabric that a lot of masks are made out of.
So, and how are you balancing now? Obviously, first of all, fabric sourcing, it seems to me you support local business and you also produce things domestically, even in other times. How are you managing your day-to-day now, balancing the James and Hudson business versus the other 2 brands?
So I will tell you, it all goes back to my team. I have a fantastic team, and I could not do this without my team. Anybody that knows me well knows I'm a little scattered. I have some ADD in me. I'm, a little flighty.
I think, by the way, throughout this conversation, she's described herself as both Marissa and Jamie, like during this.
Yeah.
Like Marissa, when you were talking about your ideas being a little out there, I'm like, I could think of somebody that's like that. And then she like expects us to execute it. And then now you're describing me like a little ADD, a little all over the place,
I mean,
like definitely
I'm
rely on my team.
I always have 15 things going on at one time, but I really honestly have the best team in my industry, I think. And I mean, granted, we're all, best friends, and we have been, and we have each other's backs. And if I were not for my team, none of my companies would exist, because I am the idea person, but I am not the execution person. So I have it's all the women behind me that I have to thank for that. So
Well, I'm glad we're doing this interview so that they can hear you say that. I'm sure you do say it, but it's nice to hear it.
It's
they,
nice to hear it.
I try to thank them as much as possible. They know those girls have picked me off the floor before.
Did you have to ramp up hiring? Which, by the way, is a sentence we don't get to say.
I did just hire a new girl. We've had some we've had some changes because of COVID. I have one of my long-term team members. She's cut back her hours, some because her kids are at home, and we're dealing like that. But we're all making it work and making adjustments and whatnot.
And are you going into an office, or are you guys all virtual at this point? I'm sorry, you all.
I know. So you'll be saying
I forgot my audience.
We're pretty careful though. I mean, we have strict social distancing measures in place, and I just was tested for COVID, so I'm not wearing a mask this week, but a lot of times we are wearing masks, and we're just careful. And but we all work from home. It's kind of, there's a cutting room, there's an office, we all have laptops so we can work from home. I'm a big believer in letting people work the way that they work best. For me, I cannot work in an office on a daily basis like that. I can't work in one place. I have to just be kind of all over the place, like my brain is. And the girls that women that, I don't like to say women, I don't like to feel like I'm I like to keep myself young, but they work all over the place as well. So
I love that. And so obviously, often in these conversations, even prior, you didn't say this to us, but I can say that a lot of our guests will say like, you sure you think my story is interesting enough? Like, am I going to be inspirational to others? And, I think what you've doing for the world, right, our kids, and also your staff is very inspirational, whether or not you see it every day or not. That's why we chose for you to be on here, because I think, the matter of having to wear a mask, which is for better or worse, a mandate in many places. You might as well have a cool one, especially for our kids, to wear spirited ones are so fun for them, right? My kid is wearing head to toe Michigan because it made
and normalizing
the fact that they have to wear it and making it cool, and they all have one. It's like, did you get one from the Booster Club? And it became like a thing, and I think that's a really commendable thing that you've been able to do for our community and for your staff. So I'd love to hear from you, what keeps you inspired? What are you looking to for inspiration? What keeps you going every day besides your 17 tabs that are open like mine, but, and just having to get it done because you have no other options. But what is keeping you inspired every day? Why keep going?
That's, gosh, kind of a loaded question.
It is. No pressure.
No pressure at all. I feel like I have not necessarily always had the easiest of lives. I've had things in my life that were out of my control that I could not, that I just ended up having to accept and make it through. Now I feel like I wake up almost every day being thankful that I'm here. I know that it's kind of cliche as that sounds. There was times in my life where I didn't know if I was going to be here. I didn't know if I was going to make it to this point. So I really, I think that just being able to wake up every day and do something that I love and be surrounded by people that I love and that they love me, and having my boys, and honestly, just still being here is kind of what inspires me, and keeps me going and kind of keeps me in perspective. Like, I don't stress as much as I used to. I really try to focus on the things that I can control and not the things that I can't control. and, accept that I'm responsible for my joy, not anybody else's. And, yeah, I mean, I think that my kids probably, I mean, like most moms, my kids are the ones that keep me going, and they're the ones that
Mhm.
I want to wring their necks sometimes, and then other times I want to, give them the biggest hug. So,
Same. And I have two boys myself, so I get it.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
that's a beautiful sentiment, and it's true. And there's, I mean, yes, it was a loaded question, but there's not much more to it. I mean, staying inspired to just keep getting up and doing something every day that inspires you, that you love, is so
Right.
important, right? So, with that, do you have any advice for like other, either struggling business owners or people looking for work, or what are your words of wisdom right now? I mean, obviously, here you are in the middle of a pandemic, creating another new brand, running a third business, which in and of itself is inspirational to us as people who work in the fashion and staffing business. But tell us, any words of wisdom that you have for others about this time, what you could be continuing to go do, any kind of nuggets of wisdom that you could share with
I mean, I think,
our audience would be awesome.
I think, I think one of the biggest things to do right now is that is kind of cliche, and maybe I don't necessarily remember as much of, focus on self-care, yourself, whatnot, as I have in the last few years, which I think is fantastic. But just to focus on things you can control. We
Mm-hmm.
can't control the pandemic. I can't control a vaccine. I can't control whether my kids go to school. There's a number of things in control. So I try to keep them all at a distance. I don't watch the news. I very rarely read the news. I try to stay off social media as much as I can. I really focus, try to focus on what keeping myself happy. And I think that's what I, would tell anybody else, is that yes, there are so many things going on that are awful, wildfires that are awful, people dying of COVID that are awful, politics that is a crazy circus right now. Um, I try to focus on my inner self and my what's around me and what makes me happy, and keeping my children happy, and focus on what I can actually touch and control, and not
I
getting.
think you hit the nail on the head there, not to interrupt you. I say
No.
that all the time. In fact, it's one of my many mantras, which is focus on the things that you can control, because the stuff you can't will just fall into place. And I think that that's a really important way to live your life right now. But you also are doing something, just to point out and not to downplay, that yes, you're focused on your inner circle and your own inner joy and your people and keeping yourself, positive, and the people around you positive. But you also made a conscious choice to give back and figure out a way to create something with your skills that is bettering others. So even though you're siloed thinking, you still are a broad thinker in trying to help others, which I think is very commendable. But I'd say that within that, it sounds like you have a couple of mantras that you say to yourself. I mean, Marissa and I talk about mantras often, focus on the things you can control, obviously, can be a mantra.
Right.
But is there any other mantras that you say to yourself or to your team?
I think the biggest one that I have lived by for 20 years is, if you have a dream and determination, anything is possible. And one of the first times, yeah, one of the first times that I was interviewed.
I mean, it's the name of our business, so we get
it.
it.
Is dream, it's like, it's one of those things. If you have the determination, and I tell my kids this, I was like, it does not matter how smart you are, it matters how hard you work.
Yes.
And when I started all of this, many, many, many moons ago, I had no idea what I was doing. I still probably don't feel like I know what I'm doing, but I guess I know what I'm doing a little bit. It was all determination. And I think with anything in life, like if you want something, go for it, go after it. And it's, it rings true with anything, with any aspect, and I think that I was just a girl that literally had a dream. I had $300 in my bank account, and somehow I created a clothing company from Charleston, South Carolina. Like I don't know. And you know what? It's funny because up until about 3 years ago, our vendors in New York would always ask us, we're Charleston, South Carolina. is, I mean, it's like no one knew where we were basically in the fashion world. You didn't have much respect whatsoever. But yeah, I mean, the determination, I didn't quit. And I think that's what, if anybody listening or, that wants to do something, do it, and anybody can do anything that they want to do. Like,
and now there are a lot of people trying to invest time and energy into exactly that. The silver linings or the lemonade of this time is that people have had to go deep inside and figure out what else they could do, or what can they do to contribute, and or what would they like to do instead, right? Which is actually the biggest blessing of all. I was listening to you and your sentiment before about inspiring others, and dreaming big, and of course controlling what you can control. And I think I'm so sentimentally connected to all of your word choice, because the truth is like, everyone's supposed to do the best they can. And I think that if we just do the best we can, right? And what's the definition of what we can? So in my world, it's this. It's talking to others, it's inspiring others, it's engaging others, and the people that are doing, Betty, this is going to sound really brilliant. The people that are doing the science, they do the best they can, because that's what they're supposed to do. That was their interest. They weren't sketching clothes. They're not going to try to do what you are doing. We all can contribute to healing our society by doing what we do best. So I'm with you. I get my news from Jimmy Fallon. Okay. That's how I take news in, because I can't. And that does not, by the way, make us bad people. It means that we're trying to do the best we can with what we are able to do with our own emotion, our own brains, our own sensitivities, and our own day-to-day. And at the end of the day, you're making masks for people. I'm wearing one. I live in New Jersey and you're in Charleston, South Carolina, which, by the way, it's probably a little longer than 3 years that people knew where Charleston was.
Maybe a little bit, but when I started,
someone got smart, went on a bachelorette there a while ago, and they're like, "Oh, Charleston's a cool
city. This is a fun city."
Yeah.
And I think, by the way, I will say this. I think that, we often like to remind people to remember this about your own self, right? And this is what I would say to you, Katherine, to our audience. We are all put on this earth to do something, right? And so if during this time, you've gotten nothing else out of it, it's figuring out what you were put on this earth to do. And Marissa and I have figured out, thankfully, before this, but now even more so, we were put on this planet to connect and inspire others. That is who we are. And what we're doing with this podcast is doing that, just that. And the fact that you are a believer in the universe and believed that we randomly tripped over you, and it turns out your friend is friends with the girl that made the mask, that's not coincidence. And we believe in all of that. It's definitely a path. And we were led to you and this conversation. And if nothing else, that in and of itself should be inspirational to others to hear. And to know that you just never know who you'll meet, what conversation will open your eyes to something. And hopefully through this conversation, somebody listening thinks, you know what, that's a good idea. I'm going to not do whatever I was doing, and I'm going to create this, or I'm going to reach out to the company down the road that I know could do this for me, and we're going to do this together and start a new partnership, start a new path. And if nothing else, it's just feeling that invigoration that comes from a conversation. Nothing comes out of it right away. So
I know one of our dream ambassadors is a young woman who came to New York. I'm shouting you out, Grace. And she came to New York wanting to be a fashion designer. She comes from a small town. She went to a small school, doing incredible work for Choice, which is our parent company, and not working in fashion at all, which is a whole other thing. She just had to do what she had to do, which frankly may be the biggest and best lesson that she learns in life, right? As all of us are older and wiser than her. And she's been making masks too. So I'm sure she'll find your storyline extremely inspirational and empowering. And I think I want to know, is there anything that we sometimes will want to just double back and say, is there anything that we should have asked you and we didn't?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I have no idea.
I think one of my favorite questions, as opposed to putting that on the spot, think about it. If there's anything you want to
professionally,
think about that. But in the meantime, also another question to add, which we talked about your mantra. We also believe everyone has a superpower. You know, do you believe that you have a superpower? And if so, what is it?
So I do believe that I have a superpower, you know, as all
Yes,
moms out there, like,
Katherine.
yes. You know what? I am usually I'd say 90% of the time, 95% of the time, I'm extremely calm. Sometimes to an extent, like sometimes to a fault, but I do believe that that's one of the things in business and in relationships and whatnot. I'm a calm person. I think that's why my team has probably stuck around me as long as they have, is that I don't get overly emotional about things and whatnot.
Can I ask
And
you a
then,
question? My sister's normally this person, but you've now said
no,
you're stubborn, you're calm, and you're a creature of habit. Are you by chance a Taurus?
no, that's funny. I'm gonna,
See, I was going to say
You
she's
are
an Aquarius.
describing my husband.
Hold on
Yeah.
a minute. Hold on a minute. You heard it here first. I know. So here's what's happened. I would have pegged you for a water sign the way you're speaking, okay? Until you said the calm, because
The
that
calm.
is not water.
No.
Because we are all hot mess expresses.
We are both
So-
water, and we are hot mess express crying
Now-
on a regular. Not
Yeah.
Through the years, Catherine, this is really important information for the world to know. Through the years, and Jamie's picking up my crumbs here. I have become, because I looked at resumes for so long, somewhat like a side hobby, picking out people's astrology just by the way they spoke to me in an interview. Okay.
Mhm.
I know nothing about astrology other than the top line stuff. I just was fascinated. I'm fascinated by people. I'm more fascinated by people than I like people, which is not something we should say on air, but it's okay. I like people, just not really in my life. I mean, I do, you know what I mean? I'm not
I get
sure.
it.
Anyway, point is, I'm sitting here listening to you, and I said to myself, this woman is a water sign. I'm about to ask her. And then in the second you said calm, I said, nope. I'm like, this is one of those ones that puzzle me, that I always mess up, are Aquarians. So are you an Aquarian?
Yeah.
She is. She just said it.
I can do no wrong today. I can do
That
no
is-
wrong
She
today.
said it already. She
I
already
could
said
not-
she was an Aquarian.
By the way, I could not hear you. So I am live on Zoom, and I didn't
I
hear
am
you.
an
I guess-
Aquarius. I am feisty. I have a sailor's mouth. I mean, yes, I'm an Aquarius.
Well, it's
Pretty,
funny because I thought you were a
tried and
Taurus
true.
because you were describing my calm creature of habit,
Yeah.
stubborn husband, who I just texted to make sure he can go pick up my son. Okay, because preschool ends at 10:50, 8:30 to 10:50 really flies by. So to wrap, we always like to ask a fun question. Before COVID, our questions were about travel and like food you ate and fun things that just got to know you a little better. And we found, obviously, that those answers have become funnier and funnier, that if you could travel anywhere in the world, where would it be? And people are like, Target.
Yeah.
Anywhere but my room. So we like to focus on Crush, which is a project that I work with young students on often about, you know, if you're trying to figure out or what you want to do, you know, really identifying the brands that you crush on, why you crush on them, what are they doing, where are they located, and then that obviously kind of snowballs into their job search process. But we like to ask our guests about brands they crush on, just because you are a brand that we were crushing on, which is why we wanted to interview you. Is there anybody out there that you want to shout out, that you think is just doing an awesome job right now in life, in general, in COVID, or that's pivoted in some way, even if it's local to you? Because,
Yeah, so
you know, obviously, yeah.
I have a friend who just started this. Well, she started maybe 6 or 7 months ago. Brooke. It's MIMISEABROOK.
That's
And the
Okay.
reason that she is so inspiring to me is that she last November, she asked me to go to this conference with her. And I wish I could remember who it was, but I can't right now. And she was like, I'm gonna start this this website, and it's like an online shopping website, whatnot. And my friend, her name's Giles Bennett, and she'll probably kill me for saying all this, but I have watched her for the
I'm
last
on
7,
her
8
page
months
now.
go so gung-ho 100% into this business that she is doing.
Yes.
and has done such a fabulous job of just marketing herself and really going for it and going after it. And, you know, it's been very impressive to watch. And she has learned all the social media things. She's learned how to do all the Instagram, whatnot. And it's been impressive. So Mimi Seabrook, she's my local brand crush, I would have to say, just because I'm impressed by her determination. And
I want to see him.
Very cute. It's a
She's
fashion.
got-
So it's a fashion website, or is it through Instagram that you buy her
it's
stuff? Or
through
is it,
she has a website, and through Instagram you can buy her things. And you know, she just has affordable dresses and fun things for, you
so
know,
cute. I'm
for
on it
women.
now.
Yeah. But she just really, honestly, she has gone for it and she has done it. And for me,
And
it's
she's
been
only been doing it for a few months, and she has over 5,000 followers.
yeah,
Good for
she's
her.
only not even a year, because we were at this conference November of last year. So
Awesome.
I just
Good for her.
I admire her conviction. and her
Tenacity is a great word for
yes,
that. I love that.
100%.
Meanwhile, and I'm sorry,
Amazing.
I was just looking at her whole page. Her social media presence is really nice.
Yeah, she's got a great, and she does
And
all of it
I'm just
herself.
saying it's age appropriate, for my eyes.
Women of a certain age, right?
No, it's everybody, but I'm looking and I'm seeing that there's plenty of people that look like they're
Right. It's
my peer.
Contemporaries.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think, that's a great, is there anybody else that you wanted to shout out? I didn't want to cut you off because
No,
it
I think
sounded like you had another.
Mimi Seabrook's the one that always comes to mind lately, that I just admire her, that she's done it.
Well, good for
Even
you for
within a
shouting her out.
pandemic.
Love women supporting other women and friends supporting friends. So that was a great shout out. Well, thank you for being here today, Katherine.
Thank
We find
you.
your story so cool and inspiring. Our
Thank
kids
you.
love your masks.
Thank you.
And so happy that we tripped into you in that
Yes, I love meeting you guys. I feel like we'll be friends for a long time.
I love it.
Me too. And I want to come visit.
Please come visit.
Jamie,
Charleston's been on my list for a long time.
Me too. I did Jamie's bachelorette party. It was a choice between Charleston and Savannah, and I mean, not intentionally, we just chose Savannah, and I don't remember why. I know why. It was because Jamie was a very avid Food Network fan.
Oh, so you wanted to go see Paula Deen?
I wanted to go see
yes.
Paula Deen.
Yes.
In 2009, 2008.
2009. It was in
2009, before things got a little sour with Paula Deen.
Yeah.
I loved her at the time. So we went to her restaurant, which was like part of it all.
Yeah.
I was like a typical tourist, but we also did all the really cool non-touristy stuff, but that was one of the things.
Right. And since then we've been wanting to get back, and Charleston is like, a great girls trip, but
It's a great girls trip. It's a great girls trip.
So I'm now on Mimi Seabrook's Instagram, and there's a pink
now, by the way, this
breast cancer event, and it's sold out.
Dear Mimi Seabrook, I am now going to be on your page at 6:48 a.m.
Yeah, you can go down the rabbit hole.
Well, thank you, Katherine. Thank you for being here. Thank you to Susan Hudson for our awesome work stuff. Thank you to Ming at Shared Universe for doing our sound. And thank you to Maris, who does all of our social.
And thank you to all your brides, who have been patient.
100%. We didn't even talk about the bridal, but I mean, oh my goodness, these poor girls that had to plan, replan, postpone. It's been
one of our colleagues, someone that works for us for the last few years, was slated to get married in October 24th. Actually, she's still getting married on October 24th. It's just going to look a lot differently than she had planned. And, to be doing such an incredible.
It's not about the dress. It's not about, the monogrammed napkins. It's about the person that you found that you are in love with, and your partner that you found. And, as we all know, marriage is not about the wedding day. So focus on the love between two people, and try to forget about the things you can't control. You cannot control all the other things. So, focus on what
and I really think, speaking of lemonade out of lemons, as we, to wrap, I think is a great way to remember. As I was saying earlier, I feel so bad for all these different groups of people. These brides and what they've been able to create now out of the lemons has been really amazing to watch. You know, I've seen people get married in backyard intimate affairs that they would never have experienced or maybe even thought they wanted. And now that's all they want. And they're like, we'll do a party one day. And then they decide they don't even want a party. And I'm like, you know what? These girls are way smarter than us because they probably can buy a house like 5 or 6 years before the rest of us.
Exactly. 100%.
Yeah.
Because they didn't blow a load on the wedding.
Blow the whole wad on their party.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And this was such a pleasure. And we will definitely stay in touch with you. We're looking forward to it.
Katherine, your grandma would be very proud.
Oh, thank you. I miss my grandma very much, but she would be
She was your mother's mom, right? Your mother's mother? Yeah.
Yep. She keeps, she's my guardian angel. So thank you for saying that.
I bet you she knows it. All right.
Well, on that time. Okay. we love these conversations, especially ending in tears. Thank you for coming, Katherine. And thanks to our audience for listening. And we'll talk to you soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.